Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Nate Ivy. I'm a member of the California Environmental Literacy Initiative's District Innovation Hub. We organize a webinar series to help advance environmental literacy in the state of California, and to help school districts and people who work in and with them think about systemic change to support all students. We're really glad you're here. Today's topic is Learn with Green Schoolyards America, and we'll have a fantastic featured speaker, Aisha Ursulan, who's a senior program manager and education specialist for Green Schoolyards. I'll say a little bit more about her in a moment, but just a little bit about me. I'm an instructional coach in the Fremont Unified School District. One of the fun things I get to work on is helping to advance our district's climate literacy plan for the 32,000 students that attend the 42 schools in our district. A little about the innovation, tell you about start Padlet. Uh, some of you, if you're a return, you've seen this before. What you do. So you have an opportunity to create a little card and tell us a little bit about yourself. If you're returning and your details have changed, you can probably find yourself and edit the card. It's a really nice way to see who's here. After you've done yourself, you can click around and learn a little bit more about the people across California who are doing this kind of work. All right, well, you work on updating your connection. Cali, the California Environmental Literacy Initiative, has a number of groups. One of the groups is the District Innovation Hub, and we have five main goals. Primarily to build community across the practitioners around the state who are trying to advance district level change. Things that we do to support that are create, curate, and share environmental literacy and sustainability resources. That's the main thing that's going to happen today. Green Schoolyards America has an incredibly deep library of resources and best practices, and we're really excited for you to learn a little bit more about them. We like to help districts build capacity for this type of change. We hope to cultivate, support, and showcase leading edge exemplars. And as deep as the library is for Green Schoolyards America, the cutting edge stuff that they are doing and the new work that they are pioneering is very inspirational. And we're really excited to share these leading edge exemplars with you as well. There are other members of the hub in here today and other members from Cali and 10 Strands. Welcome. It's good to see you. Tim Baird is the co-chair of the District Innovation Hub, and I see Celeste Royer from 10 Strands as well. Also really happy to have Jerry Song from LA Unified School District, who's a member of the District Innovation Hub and has done quite a bit to help make these opportunities available to his LAUSD friends. So whether you're an LAUSD or any other district around the state or a partner organization that's trying to understand and support school districts, one of the things that we really believe in this hub is the idea of taking a systemic approach, thinking about how any program, partnership, effort, lesson in a classroom is part of a bigger system. And that if we want lasting change, we need to think about how that whole system works. There's a number of systems approaches for thinking about environmental programming in schools, including the California Green Ribbon program, which has three pillars organized around reducing environmental impacts, improving student health and well-being, and then making sure that students have access to high-quality environmental education. Similarly, Andrea Yagoyan's 4Cs system of thinking about campus, curriculum, community, and culture, and the way that those systems nest to support a robust ecosystem at schools. There are many approaches to this, and find the one that helps inspire and motivate your district, and then think about your role in the district and how it can be part of a larger change, whether you're a classroom teacher, a community partner, a school principal, or someone at the district office. So today, we've kind of made it through our welcome and connections. The bulk of today's time will be spent hearing from Aisha and Green Schoolyards America. We hope to have some time for Q&A, but please, throughout this session, feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll do our best to attend to them and help make sure that if there's something really timely, that Aisha has a chance to answer on the spot. But we will probably hold most questions till the end. We'll try to wrap up right around 5 with a formal close for those of you who can only stick around for an hour. But from about 5:05 to 5:30, we'll have an opportunity to get into some breakout rooms for some more in-depth question and answer and making connections among each other. The breakout rooms will be kind of organized as today's session is organized. We're going to have an opportunity to hear about ready to use lessons and activities that you can take and run with tomorrow, no matter what your school or schoolyard looks like, whether you have a schoolyard forest, an asphalt jungle, a very small school garden. There are activities for you that will help get your kids outdoors and engaged in the environment. We'll also have a breakout room taking a look at and talking about how schoolyard transformation works. After we see all these inspirational examples, how might you move your school from a surplus of asphalt to an abundance of ecosystem? So we'll have an opportunity to explore both of those in breakouts in the last half hour. So with that, I'm really happy to introduce our featured speaker, Aisha Ursulan. She's a senior program manager and education specialist with Green Schoolyards America. She holds a master's degree in ecosystem science and management from the Yale School for the Environment. Aisha has nearly 25 years experience working at the intersection of education and the environment, including as a naturalist, a garden educator, and a curriculum developer. Um, I'm super excited to have Aisha join us today, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so Aisha can take it away.
Thank you, Nate. Well, thank you for the great introduction. I'm excited to be here. And thank you again to Nate and Jerry for inviting me to speak at part of this Kaylee series. So let me see if I can get my screen started. As he mentioned, I have been teaching environmental ed for many years and have worked in the environmental field as well, and now work for Green Schoolyards America, who I've actually known this organization for 20 years, kind of from when I first started connecting with them. So it's great to be there. Anyway, let's see. Mhm. Sometimes it forwards, sometimes it makes little beeps. So I work for the Green Schoolyards America. If you're not familiar with it, is a nonprofit that partners with public agencies and school districts to transform school grounds. We're looking at improving children's health, learning, and happiness, along with ecological and climate resilience. So that is us in brief. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's the vision at Green Schoolyards America and why, what are some of the benefits, and as well as share a whole bunch of resources, which are all online and freely available, thanks to many, many people we worked with. So just so you know, we will, let's see. So before I start, I know many of you have joined from probably long, crazy, busy days in the classroom or doing other things. So I'd like everybody to just take a minute, land in your chair or whatever kind of seat you're in, and take a really deep breath in, let it out. And with your next breath in, I'd like you to consciously think you're breathing in oxygen and the plants that came from, and breathe out the carbon dioxide and the plants it's going to. Do it again. Breathe in oxygen. It could be from the weeds and cracks near you, from trees surrounding you, all the plants around you, maybe some house plants. And in comes that oxygen, and send back those beings some carbon dioxide. And we have all just connected with the outdoors as we are always connected. So for the rest of my talk today, I want to talk a little bit more about connecting children to the outdoors as well. as ourselves. So thank you for doing that with me. So the main issue we're looking at Green Schoolyards is America of is this issue of massive amounts of asphalt. And I laugh, but it is not funny. And I know we're all looking at that at most schools, and these impact student health, their well-being. So what is our vision? Instead, at Green Squares America, we are talking about asphalt to ecosystems, which whether it's simple garden beds on asphalt or creating richly layered living schoolyards, as we've been calling them more recently, green spaces can benefit students in many, many ways. Here's some examples, just if you have not been able to do this in any of your schools, this is what is possible when schools and districts put their mind to it. It takes time and effort and relationship building and funds, but it happens and has happened across the state and across the country and across the world. Actually, Green Schoolyard America networks with everybody to sort of understand best case examples. Here's another example. Again, showing that same chain link fence is in the back here. So I want to talk about some of the benefits, which many of you may be aware of, but it's helpful to hear them again or hear new ones. And I will at the end also be sharing links of some of the research if you need more concrete information. But among other things, Living Schoolyards support the curriculum across all grade levels and subject areas with engaging hands-on phenomena for inquiry. This is your little hands-on lab right out there. And in my own experience, I have found it to be very motivating to students to go outside and study a natural phenomena. And it can be in any scale. Living schoolyards also promote mental and physical health. There's opportunities for different kinds of physical health. If you have green spaces as opposed to just games on asphalt, limits the choices to a certain subset. So natural places provide more creativity and imaginative games and different kinds of social structures as well among students. Access to nature has also been found to reduce stress and improve social emotional wellness. I'm sure we can all attest to that. And also tree canopy specifically reduces heat by providing shade. It's something we increasingly need, and I will touch more on. A few more health benefits. Nature exposure this is like a summary of a bigger article. It's also been nature exposure also regulates immune function, improves physical development. If you have those uneven surfaces, it is better for balance and bone forming cells, muscle development, fine motor skills, hand-eye coordination. They've also found higher gray and white matter in the brain, improvement in vision with being outdoors, a lower risk for chronic disease, a buffering of stress and reduced anxiety and depression. Mental health, big need these days, improved sleep quality, and they've also found more positive social interactions and reduced peer conflict. Here at the bottom is the title of one of the articles I pulled this from, and we will share all links at the end and be posting them on the website. But just so you know the title as well. Of course, we're also looking at centering their happiness and designing schoolyards such that it increases children's joy, laughter, and happiness. I don't know why this doesn't make it up there just as high value, but we know deep down all of us actually are looking at this. And also, it can support green infrastructure. You can support local ecological systems based on what you put in, strengthen wildlife corridors, infiltrate stormwater, cool urban heat islands, and improve air quality. So, rather than focusing on how that has been done, I am going to share mostly some teaching resources of how you can take students outside, and that's going to be the main focus today, but show you where some of these other pieces are. And as Nate mentioned, there'll be a breakout room for those of you who want to talk more about schoolyard transformation and dive into some of those resources as well. So let's see. I have a link here. Does that mean I'm jumping to it? Yes, it does. Okay. Nate, you see my screen? Give me a thumbs up if you do. Okay. So this is our main homepage. I'm going to navigate around it a lot today to show you how it's set up. We are working on redesigning it to be more user-friendly with filters, but that is a bit down the line. So first, I'm going to go a big collection of resources called the National Outdoor Learning Library. And I'm just going to show you a few. We really developed this during the pandemic, but a lot of these materials and work had been happening. We just finally put it all together here. So I'm going to look at these two resources, number 4 and number 5, teaching and learning outdoors, as the most relevant today. And, this is designed as a chapter and it has a lot of tools for if you or somebody you are working with is new to taking students outside, because it can have different ways of operating. Some very similar if you teach inside, but a few different things to think about. So I want to show you outdoor classroom culture and management, and is a little bit about, how you might design it, creating outdoor spaces, but also preparing for going outside. Just some quick tips to think about. You always want to think about the sun direction, for example. It needs to be in your eyes as the lead, not in the student's eyes. So you will need to design seating that way or orient yourself that way. It's a very big deal. So it becomes, second nature after a while, but something to think about. Also, how you refer to the space, the language you use. So you may call it an outdoor classroom or something else, just to get that into students' heads. It's very useful to develop group agreements that apply specifically to the outdoors, agreements or rules, whatever your school calls them, and take the time to set routines that apply specifically to teaching outside. All the transitions, there are different things, materials, putting things away. You want to practice those just like you would practice those in an indoor classroom, because those can take a little while. Um, and always allow some time for exploration. There's always something new going on when you go outside. And if you try and stay with your own agenda, immediately students will stay distracted. So it's almost better to just allow a little bit of like, yeah, go check it out before you pull everybody together for what you had intended to do, and plan your call back. How are you going to bring everybody back if space is spread out? A little chime doesn't work outside. There's often other noises going on and nobody will hear your chime or gong or your little thing. So you're going to have to practice a big loud callback. If I say da da da, you say, or something, a whistle, whatever works for you, something fun. And you're going to want to practice all that before you really get going. So there's some tips right here for you. Also, let's see. The other resource I wanted to look at, Green Squares America really got its start working with a lot of school gardens. Um, so we have a lot of resources here. If that is something you are trying to do or trying to expand, setting school gardens up for success, tips on getting started, how to design them, what are supplies to think about. These are all individual links to articles written by experts in this field. You might recognize some names. Some are from 10 Strands. Making paved safe spaces comfortable, using beds. Just again, this is another resource for you. The next thing I'd like to show you, going back to resources, we're just going to stay with resources today, is our schoolyard activity guides, which Nate loves. But these are these big guides. We have the Living Schoolyard Activity Guide and the International Guide, and also some of them have been translated into Chinese, Czech, and Spanish. These are, not, these are full PDFs. And I just want to show you this a little bit. Where did I write it down? Okay. How these work, and actually mention that May is Living Schoolyard Month, celebrated in California and internationally, and used when one as an inspiration to get outside if you don't normally. But anyway, this is how these are organized, kind of by big topics more than anything else. And often many things are multi-age, grade level. I will show you. So we've got art, play, health, social and emotional well-being, place-based understanding, agriculture and food, wildlife and habitat. I'm going to take you, for example activity in the art, and many are cross-referenced. I will take you to an example activity in the art chapter, mandala sun catchers, for example. And I chose this one because it is so simple that it can be done in any setting. It can be done using weeds and making these mandalas, but it hits a lot of science goals of close observation of materials using different senses. It's got math and patterning in it. You can also go deeper with it and be using it to study change. For example, this looks very much like a fall mandala, the one at the lower down. So, you could be talking about that. Students could be collecting deeper observations based on what they do their mandala with and their age and their understanding. You could be using it to look at connections within an ecosystem. You could be having students explain why they chose the materials they chose. So you can really go with it. You can be using it to study sustainability and pollination. Is collecting a bunch of flowers a good idea or a bad idea? It depends on how many you have, what's around, who's using them. So you can layer this activity. Also, for a lot of people, look at these activities and go, these are for really young kids. But these are deeply grounding activities that even adults like to do. So if you're working with older students, I suggest something like this as a SEL tool, just if somebody needs some calming or a group, or it can be a little brain break as well as part of other things. This uses contact paper to make more permanent things. I preferred staying away from plastic and always did things like this just outside. It was temporary art and off you went and you could do it again. So whatever your preference. Anyway, that is an example from this Living Schoolyard activity guide. I encourage you to look at it on your own and see what else is in there and more from International School Grounds. It's so fascinating to see what schools with other cultures are doing and other kinds of climates are doing, and sometimes they can be adapted. So I'd like to take you back to our presentation, see where we are. Okay, and these are the titles of the few items I showed you. And again, we'll share all these in the chat and a separate resource. These are the activity guides. Okay, I would like to spend the next part of the time talking about our current focus. Like I said, Green Schoolyards America has done a lot of work with school gardens. Currently, what we are working on is the issue of heat. As temperatures rise with climate change, my colleagues have taken measurements. Here's an example. It's an 81-degree day. It was 106 degrees at the asphalt that was unshaded versus 73 degrees on the asphalt shaded by the trees. Big difference. So we've been measuring different kinds of materials, trying to understand how material choices in the school affect the urban heat island and school microclimates. The other thing we've discovered is that trees are usually planted along curbs or parking lots, as you can see in this overhead map, and they are not where these arrows point, where the children have access. So we're calling this the student zone. And that's really where the shading is needed. The other issue, of course, has been equity, and the communities with lowest incomes and of color usually have the least nature access. So one of the things Green Schoolyard America has been doing is a study where, before I get to that, I guess the solution we're saying to address those issues of heat as well as access to nature is to plant schoolyard forests as a solution to protect vulnerable children. Our founding partners for schoolyard forests in California, the California Schoolyard Forest System, is with CAL FIRE and with the California Department of Education and 10 Strands. And I saw that we had a couple of people here from 10 Strands, including Paulina and Celeste. So that has been a great partnership. What do I mean when I say schoolyard forests, right? And I remember when I first started teaching at a school, and the kids were all like, "Yeah, yeah, we're going to the forest." And I came from this ecosystem masters, and I was like, "That is not a forest. That is what, 10 trees. That is not a forest." And then I wandered around, and I was like, from their perspective, actually, it's cooler, it's damper. We've got all this leaf litter, we have all these cool bugs. This works. So when we talk about schoolyard forests, we're talking about planting trees in groves, um, large groves, rather than that scatter shot, one in the concrete cutout here, one in the concrete cutout there. And then these larger groves also have, a bigger space of soil. So there's more space for the roots to really spread out, work together. So you've got a healthier ecosystem. There's more space for stormwater to infiltrate as well. And if you have appropriate spacing among the trees, students can actually be in under the trees, which is the idea. Um, Also, we recommend planting a diversity of trees because we don't know what's coming down the line. And this gives you, different pests and diseases. Different trees withstand different things. So you want a high diversity and of climate adapted trees. We have produced a list for California. It's called the California Tree Palette. And it was developed with Professor Joe McBride and Matt Ritter, looking at what trees are expected to survive as it gets hotter. And it's not necessarily the same ones planted right now, which is always really hard to hear, but just want to acknowledge that. We firmly believe that you can engage students at all steps, the design, the planting, and the care of the forest, rather than leaving it to others only. And of course, create these spaces to support outdoor learning as well as play. So some of the resources we have developed for doing this work and looking at it in a system way is working with Green Info Network. This GIS map was developed, and this basically shows you green to red scale. Red, these are schools. The red schools have less than 5% tree canopy in their student zone. Again, not counting curb trees. You can see there's a lot of red. And the ones with the diamonds are overlap with the information of free and reduced lunch. So we're also looking at greater than 70% free and reduced lunch. So also looking at that to help figure out where the areas are of highest need. This is, again, freely available on our website to everybody, both whether you're making decisions or whether you want to analyze this with your students. It's a map you can click and navigate around and look at all the data. Again, like I said, the data being looked at is not these trees along the edges, which would say you have 5% tree canopy, but just the student zone, which are these areas, 1.9% tree canopy. Again, the why is children's health with heat, and children are especially vulnerable because of their physiology, and they can have health issues such as dehydration, heat stroke, and headaches, among other things. Other choices are also found to increase the heat, whether it is this rubber safety surfaces, or green plastic grass are also get very hot, sometimes even more than asphalt. So all these resources are, let's see, on our website. Let me see if I can show you really quickly where to go. It's under resources, Schoolyard Forest System Library, and making the case. Here's some more about temperature issues. Here's the tree canopy equity link, which I just talked about. And here are many of the benefits, which I also talked about. And then here's something on academic benefits that Amy Frame from 10 Strands developed for us. So Moving on, I would like to talk about all the ways we can engage students right from the start. They can help research the issue, they can contribute to the design and the plant selection and steward their green spaces. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but involving them right from the beginning empowers students to make change. It provides them a sense of hope and agency, so important at this time. It brings a strong advocacy voice to the table. They are your strongest advocates if you're having trouble making change. It develops their lifelong skills as they work on this process, and it provides opportunities for many hands-on lessons in science, math, etc. So the resources I'm going to show you provide you examples of some of these lessons and certainly thinking tools as well. So one of the first ones you can do is investigate surface temperatures in your own schoolyard. I'm just doing a quick time check. Okay. So using these infrared thermometers and holding them up, you can measure the temperature of surface temperature and get data on the hottest time of day and year is the best way to find out what's going on. This activity was created by our founder, Sharon Danks, for grades 4 through 12, though of course you can do it in a slightly simpler way with younger kids and just use thermometers. But I will mention safety concern. With kids, you definitely don't want anybody pointing it at eyes. So think about it if you do use it with younger kids. Anyway, this is the kind of data you end up finding out. These measurements were taken by me within like 2 minutes of each other, 112 degrees, full sun on the concrete, 73 degrees, the concrete shaded by a tree. And then here's the grass under a tree, 69 degrees. So by doing this, kids are finding out the information for themselves and gathering real data to analyze. One of the things we've provided in the activity is a template such as this, which we propose that an adult mark out locations at the school beforehand that include a variety of surfaces and covers. So you get a good array and select any section that works. Usually the activity is written for teams of 3, somebody using the map. Oh, we have to go to location 20 and 45. Oh, our team is going to 29 and 16, whatever it might be. And somebody's holding a thermometer and somebody's recording data. We have a sample data sheet if you would like to use that. And they get to apply their ability to do averages as part of it. And then everybody comes back, and this is what information can look like using sticky dots, for example, and the great discussion points of why might it have been 101 degrees in this place and why might it have been 63 there, or even cooler, 57 there. So stimulates a lot of conversation. The other way to do it, if you prefer to project things and that's how you're working, or you need to use the data later to present to principal or parents or board meetings, you can also use our template to move these colored dots around. They're all movable if you look at the site later on. So whatever works for you. And of course, the idea is to propose solutions like this instead, where you have shade from trees, where you can teach and have recess, all the possibilities. Also, that activity has a bunch of connections to the next generation science standards, energy, because you're looking at transfer of energy, Earth systems, also weather and climate, of course, matter and its interactions as you look at different materials and their properties, and of course, Earth and human activity as you think about why these material choices were made. And of course, kids are working on their mapping skills, their spatial sense. It can be an opportunity for land use discussions and studies, as well as history of the land. And again, this is called How Cool is Your Schoolyard? And we will share this link at the end. I am now going to turn it over to Nate to share a great and very exciting example. It's been so inspirational. Nate, over to you.
I think we're members of a mutual fan club. Like I'm such a huge fan of the Green Schoolyards America resources. And I'm glad to see that you think we're putting them to good use in Fremont. But I just want to tell a little bit of our story of kind of how these resources have been supporting us both in the day-to-day activities at schools, but also in kind of rethinking how our system works and building our vision for the future. And a lot of the story, is kind of connected to the before and after the pandemic. During the pandemic, we had a number of students in our district organize to pass a climate literacy resolution. And in that distance learning year, we were looking at what does age appropriate climate literacy look like. And one of the things we talked about was that students of all ages need connections to nature as part of their climate literacy journey. It's exceedingly age appropriate for young children, but we can't forget about the importance of connecting our older kids to nature and our teachers and adults as well. So coming out of the pandemic, I think our goal was to get kids going outside mainly as a strategy to help them have real experiences, to connect to each other, to take care of some of that social emotional dysregulation that we were seeing. And to help us do that, we established a garden network. About half of our schools had school gardens. They were in terrible shape. We needed to refurbish them. We'd lost a lot of staff. So helping people get familiar with going outside, we turned to those living schoolyards activity guides. We'd meet once a month at a different school garden. We would do some garden activities, but we'd also do some taking education outside activities. And a lot of those drew from the schoolyard activity guide. We do the mandala. We call it nature art. We have participants go around and collect stuff and make art out of it. The photo on the left is one of our TK classrooms. They're doing a visual scavenger hunt. They have a number of items that they needed to find and discuss with a buddy. And that's in just, one of the garden beds near one of our schools. When Green Scholars America put out that tree canopy equity study, it really crystallized a lot of thinking and a lot of things that we felt about what was wrong in our system. Like it put data to a problem that we were all experiencing. Most of our schools are huge expanses of asphalt with a field attached. Fremont as a community has, pretty good tree canopy coverage in the neighborhoods until you go to the schools where it's a little bit of a tree desert. So kind of different than some communities where the schools might be oases or tree islands. It's not the case in Fremont. Um, about half of the schools in our district are less than 5% tree coverage in areas students occupy. So about half of our schools are those red dots, and fully 75% of our schools have less than 10% tree canopy where students have access to. So we did some awareness with teachers and board members at the beginning of this year. We did a professional development opportunity at one of our schools that has zero tree canopy coverage in areas that students occupy. We bought a kit. We bought 12 of those infrared thermometers. They cost about $20, $25 each. They're not expensive, so it's pretty easy to set up a class set. And we sent board members and teachers out to measure the surface temperature at this school. They had some really interesting findings, like the different temperatures in the Foursquare games that you might be able to see if you squint there. And then, like, the difference between the concrete and the mulch was another finding. That inspired a lot of our schools to sign up to use these kits. And between September and November, we had 5 schools participate in this project, including in the month of October, where in Fremont we had 10 days in a row with over 100-degree heat that closed recess, prohibited us from having lunch outdoors, canceled sporting events. One of our high schools had a major infrastructure failure with their transformer blowing out that put the school on generator power for a couple of months. It really crystallized how big the problem is. We were really concerned about the health of the students. especially small kids, they're closer to the asphalt, so they feel that heat more. They have a different surface area to volume ratio, and it's really challenging. So this photo you see in the third panel, a fifth grade class did the heat study at Cabrillo Elementary, and then they put together a sketch of what they'd like to see. And what they wanted is they wanted a little cherry tree orchard over here in the upper right-hand corner, and they wanted trees around the perimeter of the field. Um, they knew there were some design considerations. Our district isn't yet ready to rip out asphalt, although we finally got our director of facilities to um, say it with his own mouth and his whole chest that we need more trees in those areas. So we're opening up to it. But what ended up happening was the city of Fremont had a Cal Fire urban forestry grant, and a number of our schools were eligible to get trees. So Cabrillo ended up with 70 trees that's going to create an outdoor classroom area in a circle of oak trees that's about as big as a baseball infield. It has a colonnade of, pathway of two tree, a colonnade of trees that students will access from the asphalt into that outdoor classroom. And then around the perimeter of the campus, it creates a shaded nature trail. And they've already removed a bunch of the grass, installed mulch, and planted 70 trees, and that path will connect to the existing school garden. Um, we're in the middle of planting a number of schools. You can see the numbers there on the right. Millard had only 2% tree canopy. Cabrillo, the school that just got 70 trees, only had 2% tree canopy. Olivera just got planted. They were doing relatively well. They had 8% tree canopy, but so many more opportunities to do more. Students helped plan these. They're adopting trees. They're helping name the trees, like with pet names. Each class has its favorite tree. So anyway, it's super exciting. We're going to be at Cabrillo tomorrow with our garden network, so the rest of the teachers in the district can see kind of what's possible in this kind of transformation. So anyway, I can't recommend enough how useful, exciting, inspirational, and easy to use these resources are, and how it's helped us really change our thinking in Fremont.
Thank you, Nate. Always so great to hear the work you've been able to do. It just keeps us going, right? So, and great. I'm also glad you mentioned some more points that I was like, I don't know if I have time for. I was like, oh, he's dug into them. So that's great. So, let's see. Oh, come on. There we go. So I want to take you more into our forest library of resources and show you what's there. And hopefully this picture captures a bit of the interdisciplinary nature of it, because we really, every subject can be touched on outdoors for all ages in some way or another. So let's see. I am going to, where is my link? Here we go. Just take you on a little zoom through, and hopefully it will not be overwhelming what is here, but just to orient you a bit. Again, I went to resources and I specifically went to Schoolyard Forest System Library. Just back it up, Schoolyard Forest System Library. Within that, I went to educator resources, and we have this in a couple of different sort of by sequence of what you might be doing. So if you are thinking about planting and have not done so yet, you might want to look at this 5 set of resources. Here again is how cool is your schoolyard. If you click on that, it will take you to the PDF with everything I showed you. Appreciating trees is a really quick little mind map or visual graphics you can do, along with some research with kids, like why might we plant trees for other reasons, and engaging students in design right from the beginning. This is another collection of lessons, short lessons, whether you are trying to understand the direction shade is cast, so you don't mistakenly have all the shade cast where nobody is, thinking about where the sun is, and that is such a part of science and Earth systems, understanding the movement of the Earth around the sun. Maybe you need to map your whole school and generally understand it. Maybe you need to test the soil to know if it's appropriate for trees or something needs to be done. You can do many analyze the stormwater flow. There's a lot you can do. I think the other thing I really want to show everybody here is I have a photo gallery. It can be hard sometimes for students to imagine. So this is examples from, across the strait and across the country of different ways and internationally, actually, of what people have done and what it might look like and what might inspire and excite um, the adults and the students. So this is under the same activity called Engaging Students in Design. Tree research with students, get them involved, thinking about what trees to plant, right? And as I mentioned, there is, I better show you this. The California Tree Palette uh, is the list of recommended trees that are expected to be able to survive. I know I always get stuck in this. I was like, what do you mean our trees might not make it? So I just kind of always freeze at this. But anyway, here's a tree palette by sunset zone. So you find your school sunset zone there. And then here, I'll pick a random example so you know what it looks like. Has a list of trees, common names, and botanical names. So we do recommend using this even with students. So they're not busy researching a tree, and then it's like, no, there is no way we can plant that. At least have it, a high possibility of something that could be planted in your area. And again, school districts also have lists. So sometimes you want to look at that as well. And I've just given some prompts here of science topics you might look at, whether how much water it needs, or social science topics you might want to look at, such as what is traditional ecological knowledge around that tree? Does it have other significance? Is it from another part of the world? Geographic information. So a lot you can do to get them involved right from the beginning. Here's just some how-tos. And after you have planted, um, some examples of signs and displays you might make, which can include a lot of that research they did. So again, here's a sign gallery. These are an indigenous name and the Latin name that we heard about from a Dakota school. It can be in-depth information with QR codes. It can be drawings. Oh, here's one that we did with ID information for a schoolyard forest. So, there's many ways you can go. Mhm. Here's if you want to think about how to get them involved in watering, weeding, mulching, all that. There's information in there. I think I won't click on it right now, try and minimize the information dump. But you can also connect those two lessons, including how to calculate the area of how much mulch you need. We've got a worksheet for that as well, to just make it simple for you. Do some of the advanced thinking. And then really what I'm going to dive into for the next few minutes is what I call the in-depth collection. Okay, and this was, you can see it's by grade band. And this, I have a big shout out and thank you to many, many organizations who let us put up their work here. Again, as I mentioned, it's all free and online. It's all mostly PDFs, so they are easy for you to find. And all of this will be filter searchable down the road. And these are all outdoor activities. That is our focus, in case that has not been obvious by now. And as Nate put it so beautifully, students of all ages need to be engaged and be outside and have that access to nature. Um, I just met a wonderful high school teacher near me who has a whole tree talk, a class that she does with maybe her ninth graders as part of her STEM curriculum. So let me show you how this works a little bit under grade K to 5. We have different subject areas, and these are bookmarks that will take you down to another one: science, language arts, social science, bit of nature play for young kids, social emotional learning, the arts. Under science, each of these is a clickable link with a short description and at the grade level that it's appropriate for. Let me pick an example. For example, if I did My Best Bud. You can see that it is a PDF taking you that. That's under plant structure and function. Under ecosystems, maybe you want to explore leaf litter. Here's a PDF from another organization. Um, Maybe you want to design an insect trap as part of some wildlife studies or look at study decomposition. So again, it's not just trees, right? It's the whole ecosystem that happens around a tree. So I have tried to include all of that here. Soil infiltration tests for doing earth sciences. One often studies soils. So here's some simple guidelines to that. I'm going to come back to something I just skipped past, but I'll come back. We've got math, for example, just how, let's see, what does this look like? Leaf percentages. This one doesn't have images. Different ways of sorting, part of early elementary as well. How to measure trees, all these different ways for measuring heights, different methods for measuring height. So it's pulling in some geometry and measuring as well. And we've got ideas for language arts, poetry, har har. So a variety of things here, and more on mapping as well, and activities on that, including sound maps and listening who's around on your schoolyard. Very fun way to engage that sense. So that's K5. Let me real quick jump into grade 9, 12. Again, different subject areas, some of the same activities because they can be the basis of something, and then some going deeper, such as measuring canopy cover with using densometers or studying schoolyard biodiversity. Was that by Ontario? And that's in Ontario. So how to calculate diversity index and setting up sample sites. So that's in here as well. Let's see the other thing I want to show. I know, Nate, I'm running out of time. I also want to talk, I know that we have a number of climate literacy specific champions here too. So I just wanted to touch on that you can also take these particular topics, for example, outside, though so much of it applies when you're talking about climate change. But if you want to think about the carbon cycle or temperatures or stormwater with bigger events or phenology, which is the timing of leafing out and budding flowers and fruit, is all something being researched in the sciences. You can, again, go to some of those lessons. And here I've put the names of those lessons. For example, under carbon cycle, I've put in a lesson called Trees and Climate Change. So to find that, I'd go back to K5 Forest Science. And under the carbon cycle, there's trees and climate change. And this is an activity on calculating carbon storage, how much carbon is in a tree. So guides students through measuring circumference and estimating height, and then a table for figuring out carbon sequestration. So, again, these activities, even if you don't have a schoolyard forest, you can start looking at the ideas that you could start looking at a lot of them with some curbside trees, maybe you have some young saplings nearby. So hopefully applicable in different settings. The other thing I mustn't forget to show you, where to go? I've got too many windows open. Here we go. Still under the main educator resources for us page is there's a standards matrix I wanted to be sure you knew about. And this is to help people out, let's say K2 science, looking at the NGSS DCI arrangements. So you can see which lesson meets which standards if you need to look for things according to that. And again, we have it with English language arts and with math. So this is all the lessons and their links as well. So here's another way to access the information if that's the direction you need to go. So for 3.5, 6.8, 912, etc. Okay, so I hope that is also helpful. Here's citizen science. And I think the final thing I will mention about that, like I said, we will share all these links in just a minute, is we also have a lecture series. We have a design lecture series, which actually just ended, which has, but this has video recordings, and a community of practice, which is monthly, which is examples of schoolyard forests happening across the country and people talking about what they're doing and how they are doing it. So anybody is welcome to join that. And if you go to that page, there will be a link for registering right there. And if you miss anything, there are recordings. And same with the design lecture series is helps you think about all kinds of topics like whether microbiome health, how to help take care of the trees, whether it's the district or students, air quality impacts and what you need to think about. It's not as straightforward as you might think. You want to understand exactly where you're locating the trees, a little bit on someone on food forests, etc. So we are going to share this resource with you afterwards. This is going to get posted with on the Kaylee website, all these links. And with that, I think I had best wrap up and see if there are any questions. Let me stop share.
Aisha, thank you so much. The main question that was happening was, what's the link? What's the link? What's the link?
Didn't matter
Um,
how many times I said, we'll give them to
Yep.
you.
So I just dropped in your kind of three-page document that has screenshots and navigation and annotated directions to the different pieces. And I imagine people are feeling both a little bit inspired and a little bit overwhelmed. So, I think one thing that would make sense is, as participants are thinking of what's going to happen next for them, I would invite you to, open up that website, look around, but you have a sense of the possibilities of things that are in there. You might not find everything that you hope right this minute, but you know what's in there, and given some time, you'll be able to dig those things up. There was one specific question in the chat about if there are field trip resources or any guidance or support for maybe kids learning off their campus.
Yeah, there were. Let me look real quick. Where is that? Let's see. Let me go back. Main place for that, I believe, is in the National Outdoor Learning Library. And it might be under teaching and learning outdoors, an approach to walking field trips. This is the only one I'm aware of. Our focus, really, Green Schoolyards America, is to bring the field right to the school so that students have access every day, every week. So that is not a big focus for us.
I certainly appreciate that, and it's been a big motivator for us to use your resources. It's incredibly challenging in budget and just organization to get our students off campuses, and we need just better opportunities for them to connect on campus.
And I would say,
Um,
related to that also, all the resources I've shared are activities that can be done on a field trip. Like they're all, I mean, you have the plants, you have the trees, you can do these activities.
So we are up against 5 o'clock. If you do have questions, do throw them in the chat. And we're going to open up some breakout rooms in a minute for those of you who are interested in continuing the conversation. But if 5 o'clock is the time that your carriage turns into a pumpkin, I'm going to invite you to do two things. One is to just take a moment and consider that river of ideas that just flowed past you. Use one of these three reflection questions to take something from that river and to put it in your reservoir. So I think these questions can help you solidify or anchor something that you saw today. So maybe what's something you saw that you really appreciate? Um, Maybe what's a question you still have, something that's like, itching at your mind? Or maybe what's your next step? So I'm going to give you a moment to think and note, make a entry into the chat. that'll also when the chat ideas pop up, it'll help everybody get a sense of what were some of the things that stood out to different members of this audience today. So take a moment. Okay, so someone was super motivated. One of the many Jerry songs we have on the Zoom today, I imagine, Jerry, you might have shared your link with a lot of folks, and they might have all came in under your name today. So someone's motivated to buy some seeds, um, get on the website and get outside. Kind of a weird balance, right? Get online and then get outside, but sometimes you got to do that. A lot of love for all the Jerry songs in the room.
We got
Um,
all Jerry songs.
Someone really excited about the sound map. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that either before. So, as much as I'm a huge fan of Green Scholars America, I haven't even found everything in this website yet. And I got to go look at that sound map. I think it's great that somebody went through and curated all of this. When you go to Google and you search something, you're going to get a billion results. So knowing that some trusted professionals with a lot of expertise have gone through and found the greatest hits, created some of those original songs and put them all into a playlist for you, I think is really, really wonderful. So
That would be
hopefully
me. That would be me. So hopefully you'll like it. And if you don't,
you're that
don't
somebody.
tell me.
You're the DJ here. So
I'm the
fantastic.
DJ. I'm the DJ. I had a wonderful many, many months of diving into many of these activities, many of which I had done myself and others I had never crossed my mind. So, yeah.
The other thing we'd like to invite you to do, if you're planning on, dropping off the Zoom momentarily, is to give us your feedback on this session. We do appreciate feedback. It helps us make sessions that are worth your while. So if you have things that would have made this go better, things that you thought worked really well, or suggestions of future topics that you would love to see, please do share that in the feedback. So this is the point we're gonna move into the opportunity to join a breakout room. Paulina will create rooms. You'll be able to choose which room you want to go to. We'll have three rooms. Room one will be an opportunity to join in and kind of dig through and discuss and chat about what do these K through 5 lessons look like. You can dig into the website. You can ask questions about this age group. You can share your own experiences. We'll have a similar room open for grades 6 through 12 for people to get together who work with that age group and are interested in seeing what resources are there, talking through some of the different and unique challenges of working with students of those ages. I taught 11th graders. They're really a lot different than fourth graders, which I also taught at a different part of my career. So anyway, there'll be a space for that. And then we'll have a third room where if you want to talk more about kind of the idea of how do you move from asphalt to ecosystems, what are some of the things that people are thinking about? What's in this website, or what are some of the considerations? We'll have a space for that as well. Um, if you just need a place where you can sit and look at the website for a few minutes, feel free to hang out in the main room and do some quiet thinking, and then you can join a breakout room later. We'll close the breakout rooms right around 5:27 so that everybody can get out of here by 5:30. So Paulina has opened the rooms. Feel free to join the one that speaks to you. And if you need help getting into a room, you can just unmute and let folks know. I'll be in room 3 talking about schoolyard transformation. I think Aisha and Jerry were planning to go to the pre-K, K to 5 space, and Tim Baird will hold it down in the grade 6 through 12 room. So thank you all.